Hey guys, I've got a batch of Tempranillo grapes here, and I'm doing something called a cold soak on these, and I'm actually just finishing up. The reason you would want to do a cold soak is to just improve the extraction on your grapes. You get a little bit more color, a little bit more flavor, and you're really just extending the time on the skins. But you can see, here I'll pull a little bit of juice. You can see how much color that I'm already starting to get on this juice. So when I put this juice in 4 days ago, it was completely just the color of like white grape juice. And you can see now it's already starting to get pretty purple, which is a good thing. So hopefully we'll end up with a nice, rich, dark red wine out of this. But the steps to do is really just chill. So crush your grapes just as usual, and normally you'd start your fermentation pretty quickly. But what I've done is I've immediately chilled my must down to ideally below 50 degrees. I'm actually able to get down to about 35 degrees because I'm using my extra fridge in my basement. If you don't have an extra fridge laying around, try to get your hands on like some 1 gallon jugs, and you can basically just drop one in and replace it out once or twice a day just to try to keep that temp well below 50 degrees, and the colder the better really. When you put your jug in and take it out, the best thing to do would be maybe just have a separate bucket of sanitizer, like some Star San, and dip it in the Star San before you go to put it in your bucket to make sure that it's relatively sanitized. But what I'm going to do now that it's been 4 days for me is I'm going to try to really bring these back up to temperature as quickly as possible and get my yeast in there. I'm going to use RC212 yeast. And you want to bring it up quick because you really just don't want a lot of time. You don't want to like take 2 days to let this warm up and not actually have a blanket of CO2. So I want to get it up in the 60, 65 range so I can pitch that yeast quick and get this thing bubbling and protected. Another thing you just want to keep in mind when cold soaking, make sure you've sulfited your must, because you really just don't want any oxidation happening. If you have argon or CO2, throw a little blanket of argon or CO2 on the top. Throwing some extra fermentation tannins in isn't a bad idea, or just leaving a few stems because the tannins kind of have their own antioxidant powers. And I would say, really that's it. I mean, shoot for, on the low end, 2 or 3 days of a cold soak, and on the high end, maybe 5 or 6 days. If your wine starts to ferment, just go ahead and abandon the cold soak and heat it up and get your yeast in there. If you want to use wild yeast, that's up to you. I generally don't like the risk of a wild fermentation, but there's no reason that you couldn't get lucky and get a great wine out of it. So yeah, when you get your grapes in, if you want a nice rich red wine, go ahead and give this cold soak a try. Also, make sure to click the little subscribe button on the bottom left hand side of the video if you want to see more videos like this. And check out my website called smartwinemaking.com.